Reproduction in animals. Lesson preview. Modes of reproduction. Sexual reproduction. Male reproductive system. Female reproductive system. Fertilization. Viviparous and oviparous animals. Asexual reproduction. Cloning. All organisms reproduce themselves. Reproduction is one of the most important characteristics of living organisms. It is essential for the continuation of a species. If we do not produce young ones of our own kind, the living world would come to an end. Reproduction allows an organism to continue to live on Earth, generation after generation. Different living organisms reproduce in different ways. Thus, reproduction is the process by which living things produce young ones of their own kind. If any one of the organ systems, i.e. circulatory, nervous, digestive, or excretory system stops functioning in a living organism, it will die. However, the reproductive system is not a defining characteristic of life, but without it, the organism cannot produce offspring and continue its species. Modes of reproduction. Reproduction is the process by which living things produce young ones of their own kind. Just as plants reproduce, animals also reproduce by two modes: sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction. Fish, frog, cow, horse, cat, dog, human beings, etc. reproduce by sexual reproduction. Let us study about sexual reproduction in detail. Sexual reproduction. In this method, two parents, one male and one female, are required to produce a new organism. Most plants and animals reproduce sexually. Reproductive cells or gametes of one male organism and one female organism fuse to form a zygote. The zygote develops into a new individual. The process of fusion of a male gamete with a female gamete is called the fertilization of ovum. This type of reproduction beginning with the fusion of male and female gametes is called sexual reproduction. In animals, such as frog, fish, bird, reptile, and humans, there are separate male and female forms, sexes, with different reproductive organs. An individual thus produces only one kind of reproductive cell or gamete. The male sexual organs produce sperm cells. The female sexual organs produce ova, egg cells. Thus, in these organisms, two parents are needed for sexual reproduction. However, in leeches and earthworms, both male and female reproductive organs are present in the same individual. A person or an animal which has both male and female sex organs is called a hermaphrodite. Fertilization. Fertilization occurs in various ways in the living world. External fertilization. Sea animals, such as jellyfish or starfish, gather in large groups in water. They lay their eggs and sperms together on the surface of water. The sperms fuse with the eggs on water to form zygotes. Zygotes develop into new individuals. This type of fertilization is called external fertilization as it occurs outside the body of the animal. Animals living in or near ponds and lakes also have external fertilization. Frogs and toads move to ponds and slow-moving stream during spring. The male and female frogs/toads clasp each other in water. The female lays hundreds of eggs. These delicate eggs do not have a shell. A layer of jelly-like substance holds them together, providing protection. The male ejects sperms directly on the cluster of floating eggs. The sperms swim in water using their long tails and fertilize the eggs. Fishes too have external fertilization. Internal fertilization. In birds, reptiles, and mammals, the male deposits the sperms inside the reproductive system of the female. Fertilization occurs and the zygote is formed inside the female's body. This type of fertilization, which occurs inside the body of the female, is called internal fertilization. Earthworms, being hermaphrodites, do not fertilize themselves. Instead, two earthworms come together and exchange sperms, fertilizing each other's eggs inside their bodies. Let us now study reproduction in humans. Human reproduction involves two sexes, male and female. Each sex has a different reproductive system. Fertilization is internal and the zygote develops into a fully formed baby inside the body of the female. Puberty, the onset of sexual maturity, occurs in boys at the age of 11 to 16 years, and in girls at the age of 10 to 15 years. This is called puberty. Hormonal changes occur in both boys and girls during puberty. Male reproductive system. The male reproductive organs consist of a pair of testes, two sperm ducts, and a penis. The testes are made up of numerous coiled tubes that produce sperms, the male gametes. They are located outside the abdominal cavity in a sac called the scrotal sac. They produce millions of sperms, male gametes. The sperm is very small in size, consisting of three parts: head, middle piece, and tail. Each sperm is a single cell. The sperms leave each testis through a sperm duct. As the sperms move through sperm ducts, fluids from three glands pour their secretions into the sperm ducts. The mixture of fluids and sperms, penis, urethra, testis, sperm duct, is called semen. The sperms swim in it and reach the urethra, which lies inside the penis. The penis transfers sperms into the vagina. Tail, middle piece, head. Female reproductive system. The female reproductive system consists of a pair of ovaries, fallopian tubes, uterus, and vagina. The ovary releases female gametes called ova, eggs. When a girl reaches puberty, a single matured ovum is released into the fallopian tube by one of the ovaries each month. Like the sperm, an ovum is also a single cell. Uterus is the muscular organ where the zygote matures and develops into a baby. Uterus, vagina, ovary. Fertilization. The first step in the process of human reproduction is fertilization. The fusion of the male and the female gametes to produce a new organism is called fertilization. In humans, fertilization takes place in the body of the female. After the sperms are deposited into the vagina by the penis, they swim in the uterus and finally to the oviducts. If an ovum is present in the oviduct, one of the sperms may fuse with it, and fertilization occurs. During fertilization, the nuclei of the sperm and the ovum fuse to form a single nucleus. The fertilized ovum, so formed, is called a zygote, which then develops to form a new individual. If the ovum is not fertilized by the sperm, it is expelled from the uterus along with some uterine muscles and blood. This is known as menstruation. The number of eggs released at a time varies from one mammalian species to another. Humans, elephants, and cows usually release one egg at a time. Cats, dogs, and rabbits release more than one egg at a time. Hence, more babies are born to them at the same time. Nucleus, sperms, ovum, fusing nuclei. The new individual inherits characteristics of both mother and father, as the zygote is formed due to the meeting of an egg cell from mother and a sperm cell from father. This is the reason why children have some characteristics similar to those of their parents. In vitro fertilization, IVF. Some women are unable to bear babies as their oviducts are blocked. In these women, sperms cannot reach the ovum for fertilization. In such cases, doctors use a technique called in vitro fertilization, fertilization outside the body. In this technique, freshly released ovum and sperms are collected and kept together for a few hours in a laboratory dish. In case fertilization is successful, zygote is allowed to develop for a week and is then transferred into the uterus of the woman. The zygote thereafter grows into embryo and develops in the uterus, just like other babies. The babies born through this technique are called test tube babies. Development of embryo. The zygote formed as a result of fertilization divides repeatedly to give rise to a ball of cells and moves towards the uterus. On reaching the uterus, it gets embedded in the wall of the uterus for further development. The developing zygote is now called an embryo. The cells form groups which develop into different tissues and organs of the body. Development of an embryo from zygote. Embryo, uterus, zygote, ovary. 9.9 Ball of cells, enlarged. Embedding of embryo in the wall of uterus. From 8 weeks after fertilization till birth, the developing baby is called a fetus. The embryo develops body parts such as hands, legs, head, eyes, ears, etc. When the development of the fetus is complete, the mother gives birth to the baby. It takes about 36 to 40 weeks for a human child to fully develop in the uterus. Development of fetus in the uterus. Uterus. Viviparous and oviparous animals. Animals are divided into two categories depending on how they produce offspring. Viviparous animals are those animals which give birth to fully formed young ones. Cow, dog, cat, horse, and human being are viviparous animals. Oviparous animals are those animals which reproduce by laying fertilized eggs which develop into young ones. Bird, lizard, butterfly, snake, etc. are oviparous animals. Young ones to adults. The young ones which are either born or hatched from eggs continue to grow till they become adults. In some animals, the young ones look very different from the adults. You have already studied the life cycle of the silkworm in your previous class. Egg O tilde larva O tilde pupa O tilde adult. Let us now study the life cycle of a frog. Life cycle of a frog. Eggs. Early tadpole. Late tadpole. Young frog. Adult frog. There are 3 distinct stages in the life cycle of a frog. Egg O tilde larva. Tadpole. O tilde adult. The tadpoles look completely different from the adult frog. The transformation of a larva into an adult through various changes is called metamorphosis. Insects, reptiles, and birds. Insects, reptiles, and birds lay eggs. The fertilized egg laid by the female develops into a new individual. The fertilized egg is covered with a shell to protect it from the environment. The baby animal hatches out of the egg. When the development is complete, hatching of animals from eggs. Asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction occurs in some plants, microorganisms, and animals. In this type of reproduction, a new individual is formed from cells of a single parent. Amoeba, hydra, yeast, starfish, sponges, and worms reproduce. By asexual reproduction, the offspring is exactly identical to the parent. Binary fission. You have already learnt that amoeba is a unicellular organism. In amoeba, the nucleus divides into 2 nuclei. The body then divides into 2 parts, each part receiving a nucleus. 2 cells thus formed grow, and further splitting of the body leads to the formation of 2 daughter cells. Thus, 2 amoebae are produced from a single amoeba. This process is called binary fission. Binary, 2, fission, to divide. Binary fission in amoeba. Nucleus dividing. Daughter cells. Budding. First, a bulge or a bulb-like projection is formed on the body of the organism. This bulge is known as a bud. The nucleus of the parent body divides and one of it goes into the bud. The bud grows to form a baby hydra. Baby hydra then separates from the parent. Since in this case, new individuals develop from the buds in hydra, this type of asexual reproduction is called budding. Budding in hydra. Cloning. Cloning is the development of an exact copy of a cell, or any part of the body or the whole organism. Dolly, a sheep, was the first mammal to be cloned using DNA from another adult sheep by Ian Wilmot and his colleagues at Roslin Institute in Edinburgh, Scotland, in 1996. In this case, a cell was collected from the mammary gland of a female fin-dorsed sheep and an egg was obtained from a Scottish black-face ewe. The nucleus of the egg was removed and the nucleus of the mammary gland was implanted in the egg. The egg was implanted in the Scottish black-face ewe. Dolly was then born. She resembled fin-dorsed sheep as it inherited the exact genes from the female sheep. It was, therefore, an exact copy or clone of that sheep. Hence, the procedure is called cloning. She lived for 6 years. During this period, she gave birth to several offspring. She died due to a lung disease.